All right, everybody, good morning. Welcome to America's Real Estate Show. We are so excited that you are here and back with us today. We are here every single Friday at 11 a.m. Central. If you're new, I am your host, Ashley, and we bring top producers from across the nation right here to our studio in Chicago for them to share all of their secrets to success so that you can accelerate yours. And today we have a powerhouse. You are in for a treat. So I would love for everybody to help me welcome to the show Miss Claudia Zaker.
Thank you.
Oh my goodness, we are so excited to have you with us, Claudia. Thank you for making the journey all the way from San Diego. We are in for a treat, and I just cannot tell you what an honor it is truly to get to be here and share this time and this stage with you, for you to share your story. I feel like we are truly on America's Real Estate Show getting the exclusive Claudia Zaker story because you've never, ever shared this before. So everybody hold on to your seats because we are in for a wild ride. So to get things started, I mean, you began as a solo agent and you built truly a multi-billion-dollar empire. And so this journey that we're gonna have today, you're gonna lay it all out for us. So if you would, take us back all the way to the beginning, right? Let's talk a little bit about your family, because I know your parents and your upbringing had a lot to do with your success. So let's start there.
Yes, well, the honor is all mine. I am so happy to be here, and thank you for having me on this show. Wow, way back. So my parents are both immigrants from Mexico, humble beginnings. They came over to the US during the amnesty years. They didn't speak English, and the only jobs that they could get at the time were cleaning jobs. So I remember vividly as a young child going with my mother on public transit to the really nice, wealthy areas, the neighborhoods, and while she cleaned homes, and I waited there, and I remember wandering through those homes. Little did I know that one day I'd be selling those homes and owning one myself, but at the time, I remember that vividly, just constantly going on to public transit and watching my parents work, sometimes 2 jobs at a time. We only had 1 vehicle. I would walk to school. I'd take care of my little brother because my parents were gone, so I would wake up in the morning, get him ready for school, get myself ready for school, make breakfast, if my mom didn't have time to leave me something to eat. And my parents were gone. And then when I would come home from school, they were still at work. So I had to then walk, maybe sometimes take the bus to pick up my brother, and then walk home, come home, make sure that he was fed, do my homework until my parents got home, which was already in the evening.
So, I mean, just listening to you tell that part of your story, what goes through my mind is, while most kids are just getting to be kids, right? It sounds like you had an awful lot of responsibility on you at a very young age. So when you think back to that time, I mean, can you remember how that felt? And you know, I can't imagine waking up and my parents aren't there, the house is dark, you come home, your parents aren't there, the house is dark,
Yes.
You have your little brother to take care of, so you're basically becoming mom, you know, to him. So can you think back on, you know, what that was like and really maybe how that developed who you are today?
Yes, well, my parents worked a lot. Funny enough, my father never took sick days off, never called off sick. Even as I was growing up, I remember the conversations that his employers would even have. You need to take some days off. You need to take a vacation. He would say, they're forcing me to take vacation time. So I grew up just knowing that it was hard work, right? Working hard, sometimes 2 jobs. And my parents would I even remember the conversation of, you know, we're healthy, we can work, we're not gonna get assistance. Because I said, you know, they're giving away food down the street. Some of my friends they're giving groceries out to families in our neighborhood. And even at that, my parents were just against that. They said, no, we're going to work hard, 2 jobs. So I grew up with that sense of responsibility of working really hard and not complaining, not taking days off even when you're sick. So the sense of responsibility of taking care of my brother, that's all that I knew. While other kids were out there, playing and out, I was just making sure that my brother was okay, and I was the oldest. So a huge sense of responsibility.
Mm-hmm. So let's, fast forward just a little bit in your life. We're gonna kind of hit this critical time in your life when you were in high school, and you were an amazing athlete, a top student. You were a letterette. I mean, you probably were leading all types of clubs, right? I mean, just the, example of just everything perfection, right? And then you find yourself at 17, pregnant.
Yes, I wouldn't say perfect, but I did love school. And I was involved in athletics, wasn't a popular kid because I didn't go out much. I grew up in a very strict household, and I wanted to so much fit in. Actually, one thing that I've never shared was I was almost like an outsider but I had a lot of guy friends because I was in athletics and playing soccer and softball. So I had a lot of guy friends. And one day I remember in the hallways I was talking to a guy, and apparently he was the boyfriend of some girl that was in a bad gang. And after school I was jumped. And that was the first time that I said, oh my goodness, why is this happening to me? And I didn't do anything wrong. And right there, I think it was the first time that I said, I have to take some self-defense classes, and I have to be that protector so that nobody else goes through this. And then I find myself wanting to fit in, and I end up being pregnant at 17, senior in high school. And I was asked to, of course, leave high school and go into a specialized program for other teen moms. And at the time, there was no education. There was not much education about, teen pregnancy, and it was just starting, to be an issue in high schools. And so I didn't get to experience a lot of what a normal high school senior gets to experience, from college advisors and getting you ready for, applying for colleges. But I knew that I wanted to do something different. I got a taste of it from, even in my own family, I have an aunt who married into money. And so I got to see my cousins living a different lifestyle, driving fancy cars, living in a big house. We lived in apartments all my life. We didn't own a home. So I'd started to see the difference in what a nice home looks like and how a family with money. So right then I remembered, I started to dream. But then I find myself pregnant, and now I'm going to disappoint my parents, and my future is uncertain. And so I had contemplated giving up my child so that I would be able to go on and live as normal of a life as I could. And my mom found out, and she stopped me, and she said, you're going, this is a Christian household, and we will raise your child. I'm gonna raise this baby, and you're gonna continue on with your life. And that was just very difficult for me, missing out on a lot of what normal upbringing. So the first 3 years of my daughter's life really was raised by my mom. If I look back on the baby pictures and the photo albums, and I'm hardly in any of the photos, it's my mother that's with my daughter. And now she's a beautiful human being, and she's done so much with her life, and so proud of her that I can't imagine my life without her. So I'm so grateful for my mom for being that support and helping me raise my daughter. So I kicked into high gear after that, right? I said, well, now, and I know we'll get into, my law enforcement career, but I first had an education. I attended a college fair, I remember, in my junior year of high school, and I listened to a Latina female who came in, and she was an FBI agent, and I said, how cool is that? I would love to be that. But then I find myself pregnant, having a baby, and I realized, well, I can't go be an FBI agent because that would require me to be away from my daughter. So a lot of things changed for me. My parents didn't know how to apply for college or how to guide me. I didn't have a college advisor advising me how to do, so I researched that on my own. And I did get accepted into a university that I loved and that I wanted to go to. But when we went to visit and we got the college package of the cost, and even though I had gotten a small scholarship, the cost was just still too much for my parents to pay for, to help me pay for. And they said, you can't go to this college. So I said, well, I can go to a community college and I can get a job and I can pay for my college so that I don't have to put that burden on to my parents. And so that's what I did. I went and I got a job, and then I got a second job. So I was working 2 jobs, working 8 hours, then taking an hour break, getting some quick food, and then jumping into my second job, which was graveyard, took me into early morning hours. And then I would go to school and sleep for 5 hours. And that was my life, because I knew that I wanted to do something different. Change the course of my family and for my daughter and be able to provide for her.
Right, and all of you were living together, and so you were commuting to college and coming home, and so, thankfully you were a family unit.
Yes.
And your parents were so wonderful to help you, in this journey. And I know your life drastically changed, but the one thing that didn't change was your dream and your dreams.
Yes.
The first big dream of being able to go to college, which you fulfilled, and you weren't going to let anything stop you. And again, thank goodness, you had a wonderful support system. But like you said, you researched everything on your own.
Yes.
And you were just the find a way, make a way woman. Mm-hmm. So now here you are in college, and really, you're about, at this point, maybe a year away from graduating and fulfilling your very first dream.
Yes.
And then you get a phone call that completely changes your life. So now we've already had one major life change. Now here we are just a couple of years later, and you get this phone call and you learn that your aunt has tragically died.
Yes. So I was 3 years in as administration of justice. That was my degree, and that's what I was going to pursue. I didn't know what I was going to do with it. And I get this phone call that you need to come home right now. Something has happened. And so I get home, and as I'm driving into our complex, I see some patrol cars and some other unmarked vehicles. I walked into the house, and there's people in uniform. And there was a family friend of ours that I knew. He was a homicide detective for San Diego, and he was there. And they sat me down, and they told me that something had happened to my aunt, but she was missing. But they had found evidence of blood and weapons and things of that, a scene. And I was the last one to see her and to be with her. I was very close with her, and she had a daughter. My cousin has a daughter, and she was the same age as my daughter, so we would spend a lot of time together because our kids, grew up when they were young. And turns out that an ex-boyfriend had taken her life tragically, and right then my life changed because I became now part of a case, an investigation. And since he was a family friend who was the leading detective on that, I got to see behind the scenes of from being in the patrol car and following him and going through the court system and the evidence and then finding the body later and all of that process of what it takes. And I saw how it was so tragic for my family going through that. I stopped going to school as well. I had to be there for my family, and this was, pretty big. So it came to a conclusion, and the person was found, and the case was closed. And I saw how bringing closure to a family just meant so much during a tragedy like that. So I decided then and there that this is what I wanted to do. I wanted to become a detective, and I said, this is it. I'm going to apply, and I knew I couldn't get into FBI because I had a daughter, so I said the next best thing is apply to San Diego Sheriff's, because I didn't want no other family to go through this tragedy in their life if it happened and not have closure. And I wanted to be a part of that and making sure that I solved cases. And so that was my mission, to be in law enforcement. And at the time is when I landed a good job, so I was able to now scale back from working 2 jobs. I had more time. It was my first real job. I was barely I was 20. I was about to be 21 years old. And I started working for a company, because it takes a while, for about a year, to go through the background checks and to be accepted into the academy and go through these interviews and lie detector tests to get into the academy. And during that time, I found and met my husband. And that's where we met. And he had a child, I had a child, so we had some commonality. He's a few years older than me. I won't say how old, but he is more gray hair than I do. But he knew that I was going to be joining law enforcement. Mm-hmm. And then I got accepted into the academy. And I started my journey as a law enforcement officer. And another thing that happened to me was that I failed the first academy. I was great at report writing, and I had taken martial arts, so did great there. I did judo in college as well. So I could take down a man that was 2-3 times my height and weight down to the ground. But I had never shot a gun before. And so in the academy, that's what I failed. I failed the shooting range portion, and I had to now decide if I was going to go through it all over again, the physical training, to be able to apply again to get into another academy, or was I going to change and shift courses? So I made the decision, no, I want this bad enough, and I'm going to go for it again. And because I had ranked so high in all the other areas except for the shooting range part, I just poured my all into making sure that I was going to the shooting range after, and that I was going to be the best, marksman or in the academy going through it a second time. And because of that, the sheriff's department said, you know what, you could stay with us, and we're going to put you in a specialized unit because we know you want to be a detective one day. And they assigned me to a specialized unit, which was all male. I was the only female, and we did a lot of undercover work. It was a narcotics and gang unit. So a lot of stakeouts, being in vans, a lot of investigative work. So this was going to be great on my resume to help me, because you have to put in at least 7 years into being in patrol and out in the field before you're able to qualify to be in a specialized unit. And here I was, right off the bat, getting that experience. So I went into the second academy, finished top of my class, and was in uniform, wearing a badge, gun, all of that. And here I am about to be married to a businessman who's always in suits, never touched a gun in his life. And I was into extreme sports. I was racing cars. I was in a Mustang club, racing Mustangs, legally, not illegally, no drag races. in competitions and martial arts. Just we were completely two different people, but they say opposites attract.
Right, right. So as you're telling the story, I mean, you definitely turned pain into purpose.
Yes.
And again, nothing was going to stop you from achieving this new goal and this new dream that you had. Yes. Even though you failed the academy once, you came right back, and like you said, and then you nailed it and graduated at the top of your class. Then you get put into the special, undercover narcotics and gang unit. I mean, was there ever this point that you just thought to yourself, like, wow, like, I did it? And then at the same time, did you ever feel, fear or doubt creep in and just think to yourself, like, okay, I did it. I achieved my dream. I achieved my goal. And all of these things are moving so quickly, right? As you said, doors were opening for you that really don't traditionally happen for people, especially a woman, truly. Mm-hmm. And they were opening wide for you. So what was that dichotomy like?
I grew a very thick skin, because when you're around men and around that tough career where you're constantly looking, your backside. Even I would walk into a restaurant and I already knew where I was going to sit, where was the exit, if something happened, if a shooter came in. I was constantly in that mode of thinking worst case scenario and being prepared for that worst case scenario. You start to, in investigation and being in the narcotics and gang union, you start, thinking everyone's a suspect. So we would even go out on, dates with my husband.
Right. Hopefully,
he's like,
hopefully never Max.
Promise me, if there's ever a bar fight or anything that happens, that you're going to let me get my ass. Sorry, I can't say that on camera. Kicked. You're not going to defend me.
Right.
Right. But it just became a way of life to be tough, to be always looking out for what's next and being prepared. And I loved it. I loved the camaraderie. You're just so close with your coworkers. That was my life, outside and inside. And when you first start in law enforcement, you're working, the not so nice shift. You're working graveyards and you're working nights. So I worked. You have to do your time in the jails, in the court system, and then out on patrol, and then a specialized unit. But I was surrounded always with men, even growing up. I now realize I've always been surrounded around men. So when you just have to, so I tended to lean more on my masculinity. Mm-hmm. And funny enough, now I'm working on tapping more into the feminine side, right. Just because of my upbringing. And so now I'm in law enforcement. I've been there several years, doing what I love, and leading to where I want to be as ultimately a detective. And I get married, and my husband, he comes from very humble beginnings as well, worked very, very hard, left his country, was an immigrant, faced deportation in this country multiple times, finally got legal to be in this country. And so he had worked really, really hard to be where he's at and to acquire some property. And he was doing some flips and had rental portfolio. I was in law enforcement. And so I started to have interest in real estate and seeing what a transaction looked like from A to Z. And so he said, why don't you get your real estate license so that we save on the commission, right? Because we were buying property, flipping it. And he had his job, he had his corporate job. I said, sure, I'll get that on the side. Love real estate, that sounds interesting. So studied, passed it on my first try, and I said, wow, this is so easy to get a real estate license. And for 6 months, I managed our own flips, but then I started helping other law enforcement officers also, because they said, Claudia, you have a license. Hey, can you help us sell our house? Can you help us purchase a rental? And I said, sure, I'll do that. And I started doing that. In 6 months, I realized, oh my goodness, I've made more money in 6 months in real estate just doing this part-time or less than part-time than my whole entire salary. So I started, thinking, where's this going to go? And that's when I was faced with an incident in my career as a deputy sheriff. I tackled somebody down to the ground, and as I was on top of them, and I needed to put some handcuffs on this individual, but this individual had their hands, on their chest, and so I reached around to grab their arm to put it behind their back, and they bit me. But I thought nothing of it. I've had a knife pulled out in front of me. I've had a gun pulled in front of me. I've tackled men down to the ground. I've been kicked. I've been, punched. I've maced somebody and mace has, come back on me, and I still had to. So I've been in so many situations. So the bite, I was like, oh, this is nothing. Still continued on and arrested him. And a couple of days later, I get a call from my sergeant, my lieutenant, and says, you need to come down to the clinic to get some testing. And so I went down to the clinic, and they said, the individual that you arrested that bit you a couple of days ago is HIV positive, and we need to get you tested. And so they actually put me on leave, and I had to go through some testing for weeks and even months. And luckily, everything was negative. It wasn't a deep enough penetration to the skin to infect me. But I took that as a sign from God that says, well, here I was making really good money in real estate on the side, and now this incident. And at the same time, my husband and I, newly married, just a couple years, one, I was hardly seeing him. We were newlyweds, but yet I was working all the time, because when you're in law enforcement, you're working 14, 15-hour shifts sometimes, and sometimes you're overtime if there's a case. And we wanted to have a baby of our own. And how was I, as a female, going to have a child in this career, and now this incident, this very scary incident? And my husband said, we want you to be around. Mm-hmm. We want you to be a part of raising, our kid's life, our child. And so I made the very difficult decision to leave law enforcement and to now pursue a full-time career in real estate, knowing nothing about the business except for what I had already done. And that's what I did. Mm-hmm. I left my dream career and my passion of what I wanted to do, and it was very difficult. Mm-hmm. I remember for months I went into just a dark place, questioning if I had made the right decision, because this is what I wanted to do. This is all I knew. And just leaving that circle of friendship, mm-hmm. I felt alone. Those were my friends. Now I didn't have them anymore. And so I just decided, I'm going to dedicate all my time, all my efforts into this new career in real estate. And so I was already very disciplined, so I just applied that. I had a mentor. I still remember him, my manager, Dwayne Bostic, and hopefully he sees this. Oh, I'm gonna get emotional, but he just taught me everything that I needed to know about real estate. And I said, what do I got to do? How many calls do I have to make? Just tell me everything that I have to do to be successful. And he said it, and I just did it, right? And then I'm pregnant now. Immediately after I get into my real estate career, I'm pregnant, and I'm going out there door knocking every day, cold calling. I'm pregnant, making calls in the office, closing deals, and I had some very quick success. It's funny when you do the work and you're disciplined, and you just do what you're told, the success follows, and that's what happened. And so people were asking me, Claudia, what are you doing? And I was asked to speak, and here I am, a new agent, closing more than some of the top producers at the office were. And I said, well, I'm just doing what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to go out and then door knock and make so many calls every day, and that's what I'm doing. And even had my daughter, I remember still pregnant, knocking on doors up until I went into labor, in a stroller, still door knocking with a stroller, breastfeeding in the office, making my phone calls, holding the baby. But that's how committed I was to real estate.
Well, yeah. And not just to real estate. I would say, as you're talking about each of these very significant moments in your life, you've been dedicated 100% to whatever it is, whatever it was that you decided that you wanted to do. And I can't even imagine what it was like, the maybe internal struggle that went on when you were having to make that very hard decision about giving up one dream for what could possibly be a new dream. And how much fear, I would think, right?
Yes.
I mean, because it's the unknown. I think we're human beings. I think most of us are a little bit afraid of the unknown. And you'd had a path and success, being in the sheriff's office. And you decided, you know what, I'm going to leave this behind because now you had new dreams. And a few things that you said also that I really wanted to emphasize is commitment. You had commitment to yourself, you had work ethic, and keyword, mentor. So you had mentors when you were in the sheriff's department, and then you applied exactly the same rules truly that you had learned now to the real estate industry.
Yes.
And so you knew how important it was to find a key mentor who had already been there, and you said the magic words, show me. Just show me what to do.
Yes.
And then you did them.
Yes.
You took action.
Yes.
So you built this phenomenal career, and then another kind of oh my gosh moment happens in your life. So now we're at about 2008.
Yes.
And we have the financial crash.
Yes.
So let's talk about that.
So by then I'm in the industry for 4 years, and I had built success, although it was not organized success, it was chaos success, because I'm good at going and getting the business and doing what I got to do to bring the business in, but I had no processes, no systems. I had hired an assistant, but didn't really know what the assistant should be doing except for helping me with my transactions. And I had brought on agents on my team to help me manage my leads. And at the time, then the crash happens. And we had bought property. We had bought the toys, a lot of what agents do and what you're not supposed to do. But we weren't disciplined with money and money management. And so here we are now having to short sell a lot of our properties. And my husband's corporate job, his salary got cut as well. So I remember coming home one day, and during dinner time, my husband said, take out all your credit cards. I put them out on the table, and then he had me a pair of scissors. And he said, you need to cut up all the credit cards. From here on out, we're going to be living cash on cash. We need to sell our home. Now we had a nice large home that we had remodeled. We're going to downsize so we went from a 4,000 or 5,000 square foot home to a 1,500 square foot home. And that was, we had to sell a lot of furniture, downsizing, and a completely different life. And so that was another learning moment for me in learning how to money manage, how to be responsible with money, because you never know what's going to happen, and being prepared for that. And so as we had to rebuild pretty much. Mm-hmm. And so what I did is I said, okay, where is now, I've lost listings because of this, production was down, but there was one person in the office that was doing very well, and he was doing REOs, foreclosures. And so I went to him because I saw him as a mentor and someone that was doing very well while everybody was struggling during this time. And so I said, I'm willing to do whatever it takes. I'll do all your open houses. I'll run around and put the lock boxes on. You need me to check on a property, I'll check on the property. Just give me the opportunity to learn alongside you. And he said, well, actually, I'm going to be starting my own real estate company. Why don't you come along with me, and I'll show you everything that it takes to run an REO foreclosure business. And I said, okay, I'm in. And so, again, another mentor. And he taught me the ropes of what it took to gain some REO accounts. And at the time as well, my husband was ready for a career change. And so he left his corporate world, and pretty much he'll say that he was my unpaid assistant. So he went from making a huge salary and in a C-suite world to now working in a small desk, next to me, helping me with my business. But he helped me get, the proper certifications and the proper systems and the proper processes that I didn't know how to do. And at the time, of course, before I was always closing, about 25 transactions per year, doing good business myself, and then my team was closing, another X amount of properties. And now I am certified in different certifications. I land some REO accounts, and now I'm going from closing 20 transactions to 50 to 100 to multiple. So I have to hire up, and my husband helped me with that. It's just putting those systems in place of what it takes to scale and be able to manage large volume of business. So that's what I did. I learned everything that I could about short sales, doing short sales, handling foreclosures, and a full circle moment. Now I am doing sheriff lockouts. So I get to see some of my old buddies in the Sheriff's Academy, and here I am showing up to now these properties where I was taking them over, and a sheriff would have to come, and we would have to change out the property and clean the property out. And seeing my sheriff buddies it was a full circle moment going, wow. How much my life has changed now running this business in real estate.
Right. And how beautiful that you got to experience that moment of truly being able to look back and see how all these different pieces of your life were really starting to fit together.
Yes.
Right? Sometimes it takes us a while to be able to look back and see why certain things happen in our life. But very important is that you said yes to opportunities.
Yes.
And I think that's huge for everyone listening today, right? You were listening to that inner voice inside of you, and you had the courage to make really hard decisions.
And being able to pivot.
Right.
Because during that crash, I lost business. My production was cut in half. Now I could have just gone into a deep hole and just said, oh my goodness, this is the situation that I'm faced with the market shifting and our finances, and we had to start from scratch. But we had to adopt new habit. I had to adapt to new habits of living cash on cash, going through an envelope system where this much was allotted for gas, this much was allotted for this, but it was through that sacrifice that I did of pivoting and developing habits in my financial, that then it was able to free me up to now learn a new skill. And then business started flowing. So first it takes believing that it's going to get better, and then taking action and seeing, okay, what do you have to do differently now in your business? And that's what I did. And success came.
Right. And more good mentors along the way.
Yes.
That's definitely a theme that I learned with your journey, is that you weren't afraid to find great mentors.
Yes.
So now let's fast forward just a little bit, and you had, by this time, you had rebuilt, truly bigger and better than ever before the financial crash.
Yes.
So much that you and your husband, Max, hi, Max. That you and your husband, Max, were approached to take over and start running and building up what I would call a traditional franchise model brokerage.
Yes.
So let's talk about that season of your life.
Yes, so I knew nothing about what it took to run a brokerage or an office. I was really good at running our team, but it was a small team, and I knew how to transact and go get business and represent buyers and sellers and institutional. But now my husband, being the entrepreneur that he was, this opportunity came to us and said, well, you guys have built a big name for yourself, and you're doing big business here in the city. So we were approached by a franchise company, a large franchise company, to take over a franchise that had pretty much failed. in the city. So we were starting from zero. We were acquiring the staff, but no agents. So we said yes and did that. And I want to point along the way when we were rebuilding, because I think this is so important, that we maintained when we had to downsize and live cash on cash. We maintained living that lifestyle at that amount. So even though our income increased and my business increased, we didn't increase our expenses. So we didn't go out and buy a bigger home or buy a nicer car. We really sacrificed. And so that's when we were able to acquire and have the funds to be able to start a brokerage, to be able to invest in properties. So here I am, I had all this real estate, but yet I lived in a very small, humble home, drove, just a simple car. But that's what it takes, the sacrifice and knowing that you're doing this for a bigger purpose. And it was easier for my husband than I am because I like nice things. And so we said yes to the franchise. We built this company from pretty much a handful of agents to over 150 agents. And we were doing very well with running a franchise, a brokerage. And then we said, well, now it's time to build the ancillary services. So we built an escrow company. It's almost like a title company. And we also partnered with 2 male individuals to start a mortgage company. So here we are building a mortgage company. We built a successful real estate company, an escrow company, and we're living the life. And my husband is the one now leading the companies. And my position was more of the coaching and the teaching, more of the transactional, because that's my forte, right? Contracts and things of that sort. And we had met my other business partner, who was our broker of record, Mo Perez, as well. And we had built a really nice business.
And then this beautiful moment happens where Max decides, you know what, Claudia? It is time. It is time for you to step in and take over operating the brokerage.
Yes.
And he really wanted you to move into that leadership role, and he wanted to scale back his role.
Yes.
And you're ready, you're excited, and then you have a meeting with the board, and the board says no.
Yes. So my husband, yes, he says, you're ready to step in. I said, you know what, I think I am ready. I have all these ideas. The ones that I've implemented are working, we're growing. And I remember my 2 male business partners on the mortgage side said, and they had interest ownership in the other companies. And so when we brought this idea up of me stepping into leadership, they said, no, we're voting that down. We don't think that's a good decision. Brought it up again, they shut it down again. And so I decided to meet with them separately outside the boardroom and just go and have coffee with them and say, I've done all of this, I'm ready, I feel like I could bring this to the table. I just want to know from you, what is it that's preventing you from accepting me to step into this leadership role? I'm ready. I'd love any feedback that you have for me to improve on and to work on. I wanted so much to have their acceptance and to understand why they were so opposed to it. And they looked me straight in the eye. And Hillary Clinton had just lost the presidential election a couple years before that. And so they said, Claudia, just like how this country rejected and did not want a female to run this country, we also feel the same way. We reject and we do not feel that a female should run this company. So it took all of my strength to not just cry in front of them.
Right.
Right. I had to hold back those tears, and I was just lost for words. I could not believe that I had just heard this from them. And I just shook their hand and said, thank you for your time, and walked away. And as soon as I got in my car, of course, I bawled and cried, and told my husband. Of course, he was furious, and we, just let it die down and just think through what was going to be our next move. And at that time, I went through, for the first time in my life, I faced several tragedies and several difficulties, but for the first time, I started to doubt my abilities. I started to doubt what I had built. Was everything that I had built just by luck? Was it really me? Did I really have the skill set? Did I lack leadership experience? It was a dark moment for me. So even though from the outside it looked very nice, but after that it was such a blow to me. And my husband said, I'm going to support you in whatever decision you want to make here moving forward. And so we decided, and I made the decision. I said, well, I think we need to separate from this partnership. And now we were making a lot of money off of our mortgage division. It was a big pillar of our business. And so for us to walk away from that partnership meant a loss of income. And starting, having to rebuild, because that was a big piece of running our companies. Mm-hmm. And I didn't want to go through a legal battle either, so I just said, we cut our ties with them and said, we just don't feel that this is the right partnership, and we ended the partnership with them because of that. And we operated just our real estate company and our escrow company. And we had vacated the space right next to us. So we had 2 locations. One was our real estate, one was our escrow company, and then one location was our mortgage company. So with the split up of the partnership, they vacated that space and they took over another space that we had in another location. And we left a lot of money on the table because we just didn't want to go through that legal battle. And then I just went into a place of self-development, of manifestation, laws of attraction. I really got into that space of saying, you know what, we can do this, we can rebuild, and I'm going to focus on attracting the right partnerships and the right opportunities, and I really believed in that. Mm-hmm. Then COVID comes around. Mm-hmm. So I'm faced now with my franchise contract is about to end. So I have to make a decision what I'm going to do with my franchise company. A huge business partnership just ended. COVID is hit and we're shut down now. And then my current business partner right now moves into the next door building, moves into the vacated space.
So before you start talking about
Yes.
that, what comes to mind for me as you were just listing off these very significant moments that were happening is there were a lot of endings.
Yes.
There were a lot of endings. And there was a lot of betrayal.
Yes.
So can you maybe just sit with that for a moment and take us back to, when and thank you for being so raw and real in sharing, obviously, how devastating that was. It would be for anybody. And how you climbed out of that hole. Sorry, I'm getting emotional. How you climbed out of that hole. Because with endings, there are always new beginnings. But it's so hard for us to see that when we're in that moment. Mm-hmm. So maybe if you could just take us back there, because that took a lot of guts, and you were leaving money on the table because that wasn't important. Mm-hmm. It was the values and getting aligned that was going to take you into your future.
Yes.
And how many of us out there need to be reminded of that?
Rejection is hard, and that's what I faced. And not only rejection it wasn't because of lack of skill set, it was because I was a female. That was hard. That was a hard pill to swallow of something that we had built and something that our family relied on. And so it took all of me to just remember back on, okay, go back to the basics, believe in yourself. But there was a moment that I did not believe in myself, and I was doubting. I was doubting everything. But I knew I had other people relying on me. My family was relying on me. My staff was relying on me. Agents were relying on me. And so I had to put a smile on and say everything is good and, put my big girl pants on. But inside, I was hurt. It was very painful because of the betrayal.
Right.
It made me, but you know what, out of that, I think it made me even stronger. I would say the negative consequences is that I became so hard and not showing emotion and not even we had some, deaths along the way in our family and friends, and I couldn't even cry, even at a funeral. Or it just made me that, because when you're dealt with such a big blow of rejection and doubt, you kind of toughen up.
Right.
And that's what I had to do once again in my life and to rebuild.
So now you've decided, you and Max decide, okay, we're going to start over again, right? You weren't afraid to do it. And you knew that cloud-based brokerages were really the wave of the future. And so let's kind of pick it up from there, because as you were sharing, COVID happened, your contract was ending, you had some really big decisions to make. And instead of staying in what could have been just kind of a comfortable place, right? Because you knew what that path looked like.
Right.
And yet again, now you're here with a new beginning that could be, and you didn't know what that quite looked like. But you did know, and you did listen to that intuition again. You had been doing a lot of research, a lot of studying, and you felt like this is the way to the future. So what decision did you and Max make at that point?
Well, through COVID, we all had time to think. I think all of us,
Right.
watching,
Right.
A lot of reassessing of what you wanted to do with your life. Where did you want to live? All of that. And funny enough, when we were going through the transition of deciding to leave the partnership, we even contemplating like selling everything and even moving to a different country. We had even thought about Portugal. Hey, why don't we just go start brand new, start a coffee shop or something in Portugal? We really contemplated everything. All the cards were on the table. We had to assess, what we wanted to do with the business. And so we decided, no, we're going to stay put. And we had the decision whether to go independent and start our own independent brokerage. I knew that I did not want to renew the franchise. A lot of, we studied where the trajectory of the growth of companies were. And we saw franchise owners, just like how we were, giving up their franchise or closing down or scaling down because they were losing agents to these cloud-based brokerages. And the ones that were really growing were cloud-based brokerages. Why? Because our agents want to keep more of their commission. They want to have different sources of revenue. They see their real estate business different. So suddenly during that time, our real estate industry changed completely with these new models. So we looked into it. We looked into two of the biggest cloud-based brokerages that are out there and that are well known. And we looked into them for months. And we decided to go to one of them.
Mm-hmm. And just to establish a timeline, so at that time, right, so do you remember around what year this was?
So 2020, 2021, somewhere around that time.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yes, so 2020, 2021, we decided to end our franchise, not renew it. We went independent for a bit because we weren't we weren't ready to make the move so fast to the cloud-based brokerage, so we ended up going independent for a bit. I even had a ZillowFlex account through another partner that we were operating, so we rode the ZillowFlex wave before it died down. And we ended up making a move to the cloud-based brokerage. So our agents followed us from franchise model to independent to now a cloud-based brokerage. So 3 times we had made a move, and we all know how agents love making moves, right? No.
Right.
We don't want to make those moves, rebranding and the cost of rebranding and changing signs and changing, all of that, and learning new systems, learning new CRM. But I knew that making the move was not going to be just better for us, it was going to be better for our agents. Mm-hmm. It was now putting them in a seat of taking ownership over their business and having a stake in a company.
Right. I think you said a lot of things that were super important. I really zoned in on the fact that you were not just making this decision for you. You really were thinking about how it would affect your agents and their life and their livelihood and their families. And I want to move to, I want to read some stats because I don't want to get this wrong. At that time, after you made the transition, you had the #1 team in San Diego, and you were also #5 in the nation for this particular brokerage at that time. That's huge. But there was still something inside of you that felt like, is this it? And a little bit empty and still not feeling completely satisfied. So again, you're listening to that inner voice and that intuition, and you're kind of thinking to yourself, gosh, maybe there's something more, or what am I missing, right? Mm-hmm. So let's pick it up from there.
Yeah, so everything was going well for us. Right after COVID, long dream of mine was to own the own building that I housed my businesses in. And so we started a new partnership during COVID, when we were shut down in that empty space that I spoke about. That's when my now partner, who was running a mortgage company, moved in. So we formed a partnership with them and started a new journey. So that manifestation of knowing that we were going to be in the right partnership, we found. And I tell you, and I'm going to get emotional, but he is a huge mentor to me, and just right before the show, he sent me an encouraging message. What a difference between my previous partners. That's true leadership. That encourages you, that's motivating you. We built a huge mortgage company that's now in multiple states. We bought a building. So right after COVID, we transitioned into this cloud-based brokerage. We're running an escrow company. We're running a very successful mortgage company. Now we're buying our $8 million building and building it from the ground up, much like how this headquarters is. Actually, I would say our real estate office is very nice until I got to see this office. And it's a beautiful building. So we had just moved into that building, now operating this cloud-based brokerage. But still, I felt disconnected from the company that I was in. I was in my own bubble. We did all our trainings. We provided all the support to our agents. No support from leadership. Not even a phone call. And we were #1 in volume and unit count, #5 in the nation. And at the yearly conventions, they would put us up on the screen, or they would send us an email with, a social media post that, we ranked in the top. But never one did I get invited to a mastermind, or did I get a call from the president, or did they even come and visit my office that I had just built. So that's where I felt disconnected. But, I'm, again, tough skin. And I said, I'm just going to put my head down and just do our own thing. Right. We're going to focus on just us. Because we were content and we were making good money. We had joined that cloud-based brokerage when the stocks they had already gone public. So we didn't have the opportunity to go pre-IPO, but they were at $1.40 stocks. So we got in, right when it was still low, and I saw how it was changing our agents' lives as they were building equity, and the stock price kept increasing. And then also revenue share, right? I saw how getting money every month and the agents getting every month, and they were so excited to come and show me their check and their deposit. So we were operating just fine in our new building.
So then life throws you another huge twist, right? As life does.
Story of my life.
I know, right? Well, and I like to say, life is just lifing, right? That's what life does. It's lifing. So here we are, and like you just said in your own words, you guys are doing phenomenally well. Mm-hmm. And you decide to kind of bury the feeling of I'm not satisfied, and you chose to look at all the good things that were happening, yes, which is a great thing to do, yes, until a moment happens in your life when you just can't do that anymore. And so the big twist in the life comes, and you meet Eddie and Mark.
Yes.
And you have absolutely no intention of making a move or doing anything different. You just built this amazing building. You've just gotten settled. You've gotten your agent settled again. I mean, because it had only been, maybe 2 years.
Yeah.
So, very new.
Yes.
So I can only imagine, the last thing that you want to do is do something brand new all over again, especially after all these different changes that you've gone through, right in your life up to this point. Mm-hmm. But you meet Eddie and Mark, and something just magical happens. And so I would love for you to tell the story about the meeting when you and Max met Eddie and Mark, because there is a fun little twist in there that happens when you meet them. And I love how unexpected this is. And we always have to be watching for what's going to happen in our life that's unexpected.
Absolutely, open to opportunity. And we were, like you said, we were running a very successful business and very content with where we were. And I was now getting involved on the local board level. I'm incoming president for our local board association. I'm a state director for our state association. I'm a past NAREP president. I serve on the regional board. So I'm involved in our industry beyond just running a real estate company. So very busy. And now I'm having, everything that I do is for the betterment of our agents. And so they've stuck with me from change to change to change. So when my partner Mo brought the idea up, if I would be open to hearing about making another move or about looking into a different change, I said no. I didn't even know the name. I didn't know who was involved. I was just saying, there's absolutely no way we could put our agents through another change. They will leave. They will leave. They will all leave. And I had gone through so many changes. And so I said no twice to sitting down and just having a conversation. Until finally, I think the third time, Eddie and Mark, as persistent as they are, flew in to San Diego without having an appointment and without having a yes, and convinced my partner, Mo, who had been our broker of record from the franchise world to independent to now with us now here, and just said, get us a dinner time with them. And so I said, I think late last night, he's a rock star and travels around the world, so he's hardly ever in the office. I was the one always in the office. And so late in the evening, he was there really late, and we're like, what is he doing here, working late? It's not like him. And finally he says, what do you guys have planned for dinner? I think he was either that night or tomorrow night. And we're like, oh, we have no plans for dinner. Why? You want to have dinner together? He goes, yeah, let's have dinner, but with 2 other individuals as well. And that's when he said, with these guys that I've been telling you about, Mark and Eddie, and I had seen Mark Demas on stage through NAREP, and so I knew of him, and I knew he was always a top agent. I didn't know who Eddie Garcia was. And so I said, okay, sure, I'll sit down and we'll have dinner. We agreed to have dinner. And we're like, he said, this is the way our partner put it. If you just agree to have dinner with them, I promise to never bring it up again, because this is now the third time. We said, okay, great. We'll have dinner just to shut them up and never have to deal with this again. And so that's what we did. We ended up going out to dinner, and my husband was so dead against this. He had no interest. And so the famous line now that they use when we first sat down for dinner, my husband said, I'm here, but I'm not here. And that was the line that he said, and that was not a good beginning to a dinner conversation. And we listened, and of this vision, and it sounded exciting, and it sounded great. But I was still thinking about my agents and the move, and it had to be something so much greater. I was already at a cloud-based brokerage. I was already having revenue share. I had already built a downline. I had already had equity that now were worth 5x times more than what we gained. And so if a move meant a lot of money for us to again leave on the table and to walk away with, and then to tell our agents. So that was the last thing on my mind. However, I was intrigued by when he mentioned the community aspect and how much the community events that he puts on and how he gives back, and the heart, the culture. And that was really important to me, is knowing that there was heart behind a company. Mm-hmm. and who was behind that, and they were actually walking the talk. And so he says, so if you want to come check out one of our career nights, so you get an idea of what we're doing. And I was interested in doing a real estate school in my office. And so he says, in 2 days, if you could be on a plane and be in Chicago, I'd love to show it. And so still there, I still had no interest in the whole move. But I was interested in finding out more of what he was doing, building here, because I wanted to do the same here. And I had built multiple companies. Eddie had built multiple companies, and he was building a beautiful facility, and I had just finished building a beautiful facility. So I was very much interested to see what he had built. And so I got on a plane, expensive ticket, booking it 2 days before from San Diego to Chicago. But, I made the investment and got on a plane and came here, sat right there and attended one of the career nights. And I met some of the amazing individuals here, heard the stories. And I'm not an emotional person. And I was brought to tears just hearing the stories of how Eddie had impacted their lives and how this company that he had built had touched so many. And I remember at the back of the room, shedding a tear and saying, wow, this is a true leader with heart that has touched so many lives, and that's something that I didn't have. And so I think at 3 a.m, at a pizzeria shop here in Chicago, I knew then and there that I was in, that I wanted to be a part of this that he had created, because being able to know that my agents were going to be well taken care of by someone who doesn't just care about the dollar or the bottom line, that has a heart of giving, I knew that's someone that I could get behind and make a switch. And so I said yes. But now the big challenge was ahead of me, was convincing my husband.
Ah, yes, Max. So we had to tell Max.
Yes, and so went back, and my husband remember just thinking that I'm there to see what I can bring on to our company and help our company grow. And I tell him I'm excited, and I'm sharing everything that I experienced, and I'm so motivated. I want to be a part of this. And he's analytical process guy, amazing with finances. He's built amazing businesses, helped other businesses scale. His background and what he does is just truly amazing. And so he knows business. And he says, well, I have some questions that I'm going to ask. And he types up about 50 questions to send to Mark and Eddie about how this company is structured and the motto and the back end before making this move. And he actually calculated that this move for us was going to be a $300,000 move for me to move our company over with all the equity that we were going to leave behind, with all the rev share we were going to leave behind, the rebranding, estimating how many agents we were going to lose, now moving for the 4th time in such a short period of time. So he was very analytical. He says, if this is something you want to do, this is what it looks like. This is the loss. This is what you're going to rebuild. So if you guys are willing to risk $300,000, then this is what it looks like. So I said, well, help us out to make a decision, to see what it looks like. And so that's what he did. He sent out a 50%. I wasn't expecting that many questions. And then the next morning, he added 10 more questions. So it was like 60 questions that he had sent to Mark and Eddie. And of course, Mo and I, our partner, were like, oh my God, he's killing the deal. They're going to be like, who are these people we're bringing on? But we were very well. We had to make sure that this move was a big move for us.
Right.
And they flew in multiple times to meet us in San Diego and to sit with us for hours and hours till 12, 1 o'clock in the morning, and to go over everything and to talk to us about how the company was structured. And my husband then, there and then, after seeing everything and seeing who the players were involved, and he said, okay, I give the green light. And that was...
So even after all of that, right? So I imagine all your questions got answered, but you're still sitting there knowing, hey, this is going to cost me.
Yes.
It's going to cost me big.
Mm-hmm.
What was it? Can you think back to that moment in time, and can you remember, hey, I'm willing to give that up because I know, again, this new beginning that's in front of me is going to be massive. You had to listen to that intuition inside. So at the end of the day, what was it, if you can remember, what was that key moment that had you say, I'm willing to give this up for this over here?
Truly it was something that Eddie said. And he said, with this opportunity, I'm going to give you a voice at the table. I'm going to be right there to guide you. We're here to support you in the transition, in building this company up. And that was huge to me because of what I had experienced. Mm-hmm. Right? And I'm going to get emotional. But that was huge because I didn't have that where I was. And then my experience with my prior partnerships. So to have someone who had built such a big business, being able to say that to me and commit that to me, I said, okay, that did it for me. And my husband saw that, and I think he even told my husband, I'm going to give all the support to your wife and whatever she needs to build this business up. Then it didn't matter anymore about the money. Mm-hmm. This was a startup company, I knew, but I was going to be a part of building it and having my voice heard, and that was really important to me.
Yes.
So I soon found out, of course, that I was the only female from all the male founding partners, still the only female to this day, and but that wasn't new to me to be surrounded around.
You'd been there
I've been there before, and it's a deeper meaning for me to know that I've always had a passion of uplifting and empowering other women and making sure that their voices are heard, that they have a seat at the table, that there's more representation of women in leadership positions. Mm-hmm. And this was a move that I was going to be able to have a path down that. I didn't know how it was going to be until launch day. and I'll talk about that. But, you know, I knew my husband done the back end homework piece, and again, we were going to leave a lot of money at the table, but the vision and the dream and the opportunity was so big, and I saw it, and I believed in it, and I took a risk, and I'm so glad I did.
That's right. And I love how, again, your life just came full circle to remembering back to when that board said no. And then you have Eddie, who was not only, yes, I want you. Yes, I want you to have a seat at the table. Yes, I want you to be one of the founding partners of this company. And I can't even imagine how that felt, right? And it's one thing for someone to say something, and it's another thing for them to do it.
Yes.
And I know he has a massive track record of doing exactly what he says he's going to do. So I would love for you to share with everybody how not only did he say yes to all those things, and yes, Claudia, I'm going to give you everything that you need and all the support that you want, and I know the visions that you have, and so maybe you can just share with us just a few examples of what has already come to pass.
Wow, well, it feels like we've been on this journey for years, and I can't believe that we've only been launched for less than 7 months, or 7 months just about. And, you know, on launch date, you know, in San Diego, in my hometown, and that was another amazing, we had our launch party, our launch celebration in my building. So it's now a second headquarter for the company. So it's home to all of you. And even if you're not with Realty of America, it's still a home for you. Come and check one of our trainings out. On launch day, we had the conversation of, I started with a group of women. We were actually trying to attract another female to the company. And she mentioned how she was sitting there because of me, because she saw that there was a female in the leadership, which she could see on social media. And she says, you know, I looked for a female, and I was looking, if I was going to make a move, it needed to be behind, you know, knowing that there was a woman at the head. And so we just had a discussion about our life and about the struggles of being a woman, right? Because we're mothers, and we're creators, and we raise families, and we run businesses, and we balance a lot. And so after that, everybody felt, it was just such a great conversation. I said, you know what, we need to do more of this. We need to have more of this. I didn't have this previously in any of my other companies throughout my real estate career, and I've been in the business for 21 years. Never had any of this. A group of women in the industry that support each other and that encourage each other and that form something together. So I said, we need to start Women of ROA. And so talked to Eddie and Mark, and they gave me the green light, and they said, go for it, run with it. And that was truly the birth of Women of ROA. So quickly at the conference, I texted everybody at the conference and said, let's get all the women together. I found a room for us. We had our first kind of interaction, meeting each other of all the women. There was about 50 women in the room. We took an iconic group photo. I started a group chat. And since then, you know, we really launched Women of ROA, which is, you know, a powerful group of women that are there to support each other and empower each other. And our vision statement, if I could share, we just had our leadership retreat and came up with the vision, which is be the voice, make an impact. And that really sums it up. And what an honor it is, because of my journey, that I've been given this platform to inspire and hopefully encourage other women to either grow their businesses or to build a big business, to do what I did, to step into their local boards or other associations as a lead, as a director, to find their voice.
Yes.
And have a seat at the table. And so that's my mission. is to build more leaders, is to encourage more women. And we're just starting with Women of ROA, and I'm so excited because all the support and all the love of the amazing women in this group has been truly amazing.
Well, as we're winding things down a bit, I never like to close out an episode without having a few teaching moments, and there have been many along the way in you sharing your journey, but let's take just a moment to speak directly to the agents that are out there. What type of advice would you like to leave with maybe a newer agent? And then let's talk about some advice that you would give to our seasoned agents and top producers.
Yes, well, thank you for that. Brand new agents, if you're a brand new agent, one, learn as much as you can, but don't get stuck just in the learning phase. Actually do the activities. Get out there. It doesn't have to be perfect. Your script doesn't have to be perfect. The more no's you get, the more failures, you're just getting closer to that yes, closer to that success, to that transaction closing. So just get out there, hold the open houses, talk to people. Don't be just worried about making everything perfect. It's just action, getting out there. Just when I started, I didn't know what I was doing, but I was disciplined to just go out there and do the work. And that's what it takes as a brand new agent. There's so much information right now on social media and online and on YouTube that it's so easy to get distracted with the shiny object, right? The newest app, the newest tech, the newest platform. Just pick one thing, be authentic, and just lean into that. If you're really good at golf and that's your thing, then do business on the golf course. If you're really good in fitness and going to the gym, then maybe start a group of other people who have that same interest, and then you're getting business. When you come from value and just connecting with people, business is going to flow to you. So that's what my advice would be for brand new agents. For seasoned agents, I think it's so easy, and I see this because I have a lot of top producers on my team who built big businesses. It doesn't matter, and this goes for new agents as well, it doesn't matter where you came from. Look at my story. Look at Eddie's story. We came from nothing. We built everything up. But one commonality that we have is hard work, right? Doing the activities, believing in yourself. And there comes a time where you may plateau, or you may get to a place where you feel, I can't break past the ceiling. And I've been there, and I've been there, where I just don't know how to go beyond this. Maybe I've built a good business. It's okay to pivot. It's okay to say, let me reset. Let me take some time off and say, what do I need to adjust in my business to be able to get to the next level? If you're closing 20 transactions, you want to get to 40, what do you have to change about yourself, whether it's maybe your schedule, your time management? It's very important. I still do this business plan. Every year I do a business plan. Every year I do a vision board. I still do a vision board. I sit with my team and we do a vision board. It's so important to have clarity on what you want, being able to say it, being able to write it down, be grateful and be in the moment of feeling. I do that every morning. I woke up this morning. I said, thank you, God, for allowing me to be in this beautiful city and to be on this amazing show. You have to feel it. You have to have clarity, your vision of what you want, know your numbers, being able to revisit it every year, every 5 years, and believing it, right? Because you truly have to believe it and being able to make the adjustments. So a P&L is huge. If you don't have a P&L, do a P&L. I know a lot of top producers that don't even run a P&L. You need to know your numbers. Where are you investing your dollars in? Being smart with that, right? For marketing, all that, and being able to pivot. If this is not working, okay, let me adjust and put it into this. Be able to track it. That's how you're able to scale up is really knowing your numbers and having a plan.
Yes, running a business like a business. Okay, so Claudia, don't go anywhere. Live streamers, don't go anywhere. We are going to have a brief little commercial break, and we're going to come right back. So I would love for everybody to welcome to the stage Miss Irma De Leon.
Thank you. Claudia, as I stood back there listening to your story, first of all, thank you for your vulnerability, and being open and being such a great inspiration to all us women. We need a true leader like you. And so thank you for never giving up during your journey.
Thank you.
Also, I was like, I think about words, like how can I sum you up? And to me, it's a grit. You had the courage, you persevered, you have the passion, and you were aware throughout your whole journey. You didn't know where you were going, but you never gave up. So thank you so much for doing everything that you've done to be where you're at today.
Thank you.
And congratulations on your success.
Thank you. Thank you.
Let's give her a round of applause.
Thank you so much.
Hi, my name is Irma De Leon, and I have been in the mortgage industry a little over 30 years, and I'm a proud single mother of 2 amazing sons. A lot of us in our cities might be having an affordability issue for our clients, and don't let that be an obstacle for you. Let it be an opportunity. Talk with your lenders, seek out different mortgage programs that there might be out there. And one that we might think about would be renovation loans. Perhaps your clients, you have a lot of pre-approved clients, have them look at maybe a home that might have some distress. And in that distress, allow them the opportunity to seek out perhaps like a 203K loan renovation or a home style renovation program. Those items will allow, or those programs will allow them the opportunity to build their dream home. And wouldn't that be such a great feeling that you were able to do that because you knew about that product? So if you'd like some more, if you'd like some more information, feel free to contact our team or talk to your lender. And remember to thrive in 2025. Thank you.
Yay, thank you, Irma. And let me tell you, that is another powerhouse woman. So hopefully all of our live streamers are seeing a QR code right about now and a phone number. Please text the word MCA, and Irma and her team would love to get you some more information. So MCA, use the QR code. If that's not working, then just text the word MCA to that phone number that you see. So Claudia, I can't believe how fast the time went here today. This has just been an amazing journey that you've taken all of us on. So as we're closing out, I really would love for you to talk right to that camera, right? And I want you to tell every single person who's watching and listening, as you've done this entire time that we've been together, just the raw, real, authentic truth about what it takes to be successful in this business and in life, especially when quitting can feel a whole lot easier.
Wow. You have everything that it takes within you. Everything that it takes. You can accomplish anything that you put your mind to. It just takes believing, having grit, not giving up no matter what the circumstances, no matter what people tell you, who doubts you, who rejects you. Keep going. Believe in yourself. You have everything that it takes to succeed.
Thank you so much for being with us today. Please give her another huge round of applause.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Well, that, my friends, is what America's Real Estate Show is all about. It is about bringing top producers here to tell their story about living the American dream. We are here every single Friday at 11 a.m. Central. Follow us on Instagram, subscribe to our YouTube channel. That is how you will always be notified who our next superstar is, who will be taking the stage right here in Chicago. Thank you again for being with us today, and we will see you next Friday. All right!
Yay! Woo! Woo!